give it to you. He gon' give it to you. X gon' give it to you. Make me lose my mind. Up in here, up in here.
You never got to have that mommy experience.
No.
When Tupac and Biggie passed away, the rap world felt empty, like that raw, gritty street sound had vanished forever. But then, in the late 90s, DMX came storming in, barking through the speakers with a voice full of pain, rage, and truth. Every verse DMX dropped carried that fire, anger, struggle, and survival. Those emotions weren't just for show, they were scars from his real life. As a kid, DMX, whose real name was Earl Simmons, went through some heavy pain at home, facing harsh treatment that no child should ever endure. By just 14, he was already in juvie, trying weed for the first time, and being pulled into street life and bad influences that would follow him for years. All that early pain hit his mind hard, shaping the man and the artist he'd become. So let's rewind and look at where it all started, the early days of a boy who would one day shake up hip-hop. Earl Simmons was born on December 18, 1970 in Mount Vernon, New York. He was the second child in his family. His mom already had a little girl who was 2 when Earl came along. From birth, life wasn't easy for him. Earl was a sickly kid, dealing with several illnesses and allergies passed down from his parents, including asthma that stuck with him through the years. One time, when he was still a kid, he even got hit by a car. Luckily, he survived with just a few scratches, but the driver had been drinking and ran a red light. The insurance company offered his family $10,000, but his mom refused the money, telling them they didn't need it because they were Jehovah's Witnesses. What a wild start to a life that would only get tougher from there. Earl Simmons, before he became DMX, grew up surrounded by church sermons and gospel hymns. He went to services often and knew his scriptures well, soaking up everything he heard. Little Earl was a sharp kid, quick to learn, full of curiosity, and always hungry to understand more. But sadly, the one person whose approval he wanted most, his mom, barely noticed his efforts. Whenever he proudly tried to share something new he'd learned, she would brush him off, saying, "Son, go to your room. Adults need to talk." And those so-called adults she spoke of, they were often men she brought home, leaving young Earl feeling invisible and unwanted.
You never got to have that mommy experience.
No.
And she never, not once, she ever told me that she loved me.
That emotional neglect pushed him straight towards the streets, where he started spending long nights outside without permission. He started skipping school, swiping small items from corner stores, and hanging around troublemakers. With every step, the distance between him and his mom grew wider. Her way of handling his behavior got darker. She thought the only way to control her son was through force. Earl endured harsh punishment, hit with whatever was nearby, extension cords, hangers, and sticks, and more. When that didn't fix him, she began locking him inside, cutting him off from other kids. The only friends he had were other street kids, many with no homes of their own. The one safe place Earl could turn to was his grandmother's home, his dad's mother. There, he was finally treated with love. His grandma welcomed him with open arms, cooked for him, and let him play outside freely. She was his light in a dark world. But the trauma he faced back home had already left deep marks on his mind. At school, the pain started to show. Earl lashed out, throwing chairs and yelling at teachers in frustration. Eventually, things got so bad that social services stepped in. After reviewing everything, they decided his mother couldn't care for him any properly. Their solution, sending him away to a boarding school, hoping structure could do what home never did, give Earl a fair shot at peace. During his 18 months at the boarding school, Earl actually started to shine. He turned into one of the top students, showing off that raw intelligence everyone had overlooked for years. He even made a close friend there, a white kid who showed him a different side of life, and together they learned small ways to make a little money on the side. But peace never lasted long for Earl. Trouble seemed to find him no matter where he went. One day, while goofing around with another student, the two accidentally set part of the school building on fire. It was a disaster. Even though it wasn't intentional, Earl took the fall for it while the other kid walked away free. He was accused of arson and punished harshly, isolated from everyone, banned from shared spaces like the dining hall. Once again, Earl found himself alone. After leaving the boarding school, he tried to take a better path. He enrolled in a school for high achievers in a rich neighborhood, hoping to turn things around. But that didn't last long either. He was quickly pulled out and forced into homeschooling. Back home, things got even darker. His mom's anger didn't stop. She kept hitting him, and sometimes Earl didn't even know what he'd done wrong. As he grew older and stronger, he began to fight back, and that only made things worse. His mom started attacking him while he was asleep. Those moments left him gasping for air, suffering from asthma attacks so bad that she'd have to rush him to the hospital. It was during those dark nights that Earl's thoughts went to some dangerous places. He began imagining revenge, but no matter how much pain he felt, he couldn't bring himself to hate her. Deep down, he still loved his mom, even after everything. His father, on the other hand, was living on the streets, surviving by selling his paintings just to buy food. Earl would meet up with him now and then, but eventually his dad disappeared too. With no real home, no safety, and no one left to lean on, Earl was once again pushed towards the only world that would take him, the streets.
Even though he wasn't there, I don't really know him, but I know enough to know that I'm glad he didn't raise me.
Is that disappointing?
Nope. And when I first went, I was mad. I had to, what was your... In a calm voice, he explained to me. I was homeless.
After some time, Earl started coming back home, but not alone. He always had company, usually a few stray dogs following right behind him. His mom hated it, but for Earl, those dogs were more than pets. They were family. He would sneak him onto the rooftop, sleep beside him, and find comfort in their presence. As DMX later said, what he loved most about dogs was their loyalty. They never switched on him.
A dog doesn't know how to lie to you. Dog doesn't know how to be fake. It is what it is.
Those dogs gave him more than just love. They gave him safety on the streets. Whenever things got rough out there, they had his back. But his mom didn't see it that way. One day, she took him on what she said was just a tour of a place called the Children's Village Shelter. But once they got there, she left him behind and never came back.
6 months later, when the holidays rolled around, every kid at the shelter got picked up by their families. Everyone except Earl. His mom called the shelter to say he shouldn't come home. Imagine that pain. The anger and heartbreak inside him just kept growing stronger, shaping the fire that would later explode in his music. But in that darkness, Earl found something that gave him purpose: hip-hop. At the shelter, he started playing around with rhymes, learning rhythm and flow before falling in love with beatboxing. He gave himself a name inspired by a popular drum machine of the time, the DMX. It became his identity, a symbol of sound, strength, and rebellion. After 18 months of good behavior, he was released, but home didn't feel like home anymore. Earl wanted freedom, not walls and rules, so he started sleeping outside, sometimes in abandoned buildings or even trash bins. It was rough, but he'd rather live wild than trapped. He found a new companion too, a dog named Blackie, rescued straight from a landfill. That bond was pure and real. Around this time, Earl enrolled in a Yonkers middle school, known for being one of the toughest in the area. He stayed there barely a month before realizing that no matter how hard he tried, success felt out of reach. Even good grades couldn't change his situation. His mom couldn't support him, and the streets offered the only option he knew. So once again, to survive, Earl turned to petty theft, doing whatever it took to get by. Earl's first steps into the street life happened fast and young. One day, in Getty Square, he made a move that changed everything. He jumped out from behind some bushes and grabbed the lady's purse before taking off running. Inside was around $1,000, and instead of wasting it, he used it to take care of the one thing that mattered most to him, his dog, Blackie. He bought him a leather collar, a harness, and even treated himself to a pair of fresh Timberlands. But once that rush hit, he wanted more. Earl began targeting random people, then started looking at bigger risks, local hustlers. He'd wait until they finished for the night, walk up and take their cash.
Before long, this lifestyle became part of his daily grind. At school, he met other kids living just as rough, and together they started running the streets. It was wild, reckless, and dangerous, but it was all they knew. Then came something that would haunt him forever: drugs. Earl was just 14 when someone he looked up to, a local rapper named Reddy Ron, passed him a joint that was secretly laced with crack. Earl had no idea what he was smoking that night, and from then on, his struggle with addiction began. He once said that moment broke his heart more than anything else because it came from someone he trusted. Not long after, tragedy struck. In 1986, his beloved dog Blackie was shot by police, leaving him shattered. Shortly after, Earl ended up in juvenile detention for 2 years, but he couldn't stay locked up. He escaped and ran straight to his grandmother's house, the only place that ever felt safe. Unfortunately, that peace didn't last. A few days later, his mom showed up with the police, saying he needed to face the consequences of his actions. That betrayal crushed him. After serving his time and finally getting out, Earl tried to stay out of trouble, but temptation was everywhere. He started stealing cars for the thrill, taking joyrides out to places like the Hamptons. Eventually, police caught him again, and he landed in Suffolk County Correctional Facility for a while. But something inside him changed during that time. Earl started to really focus on his music. He began rapping seriously.
Home of the brave, suckers acting like they want it, ends up in the grave.
And get a hungry crew, niggas that ain't never had.
Pouring all that pain, betrayal, and struggle into his lyrics. He started recording mixtapes, hustling them out on the streets to build his name and earn respect. By 1992, all that grind paid off. Columbia Records noticed him and signed him to their label, Rough House Records. That same year, he dropped his debut single, Born Loser. But things didn't click. DMX felt like the label didn't believe in him. Most of their money and energy were being spent on promoting rising acts like Criss Cross and others. At one point, even Suge Knight wanted to sign DMX, but the deal didn't sit right with him, so he turned it down. That decision showed the world something important. DMX wasn't just another rapper chasing fame. He wanted to do it his way, with realness and raw truth that couldn't be bought. At first, Puff Daddy didn't want to work with DMX. He thought his voice was too raw, too gritty, too street for mainstream hip-hop. But that same voice was what made DMX stand out. By the time Puff changed his mind, it was too late. X had already signed with Def Jam, and the rest was history. 1998 became the year where everything exploded for DMX. He came out swinging with his single, Get At Me Dog, a track that captured the full power of his voice and pain. It was real, it was fierce, and people couldn't get enough of it. Then came his debut album, It's Dark and Hell Is Hot, dropping in May 1998, and it instantly hit #1 on the Billboard charts. Just a few months later, X dropped his second album, Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood, and the numbers were unbelievable. It went 4 times platinum, selling around 670,000 copies in its first week. 2 back-to-back #1 albums in the same year. DMX had officially taken over hip-hop. DMX's energy was magnetic. He had that wild charisma that made people stop and stare.
Your issues with the industry, what's going down with the industry,
The
dog?
industry is full of a bunch of sucking, riding, bending over the desk ass up like that. Whoever don't like it, bring it. Bring it. I don't give a bring it. Bring it. Chillin', thugged out niggas, you know what I'm saying? What up? You know, no smiles, no nothing to smile about, nothing to laugh about. Niggas is hungry for real.
So it's no surprise that his talent didn't stay limited to music. He jumped onto the big screen, landing roles in major films like Belly, Romeo Must Die, and Exit Wounds.
I say sorry, because you hurt my feelings. My baby.
Daddy, I knew you'd find me.
So glad the angels kept you safe.
Sorry.
What do you think you're doing? Hey, you! Could you turn off the air? Could you turn off the air?
He wasn't just rapping anymore. He was showing the world that he could dominate Hollywood too. While his acting career was rising, DMX kept blessing fans with new music. He dropped 2 more heavy-hitting albums, The Great Depression and Grand Champ. The name Grand Champ carried a lot of meaning for him. It was connected to the passing of his grandmother, the one person who truly showed him love when no one else did. Her loss hit him hard, and you could feel that pain in every lyric he wrote.
Who's the winner? Where my dogs at? DMX! Why DMX!
Even after DMX reached global fame and earned millions, his struggles didn't disappear. The same streets that raised him still pulled at his spirit. He found himself caught up in legal trouble time and time again, battling both the law and his own health issues, which deeply affected his music career. Between 2000 and 2001, he faced multiple charges: possession of marijuana, driving without a license, and even assault for throwing things at correctional officers while in custody. In 2002, after a failed rehab attempt, DMX faced another storm of charges, including animal-related charges and minor offenses like disorderly conduct and drug possession. He ended up paying fines, completing community service, and even filmed public service messages warning people about the dangers of violence and mistreating animals. It was his way of trying to make things right.
But trouble didn't stop chasing him. In 2004, he was arrested again, this time for drug possession, criminal mischief, and a series of other charges. During one chaotic incident, he was accused of pretending to be a law officer to take someone's car. Later, he received a conditional discharge but violated parole, which landed him 70 days behind bars in 2005. All of this chaos started taking a real toll on his music career. When his album Year of the Dog again dropped, it sold around 125,000 copies in his first week, a solid number, but it marked the first time one of his albums didn't debut at #1 on the Billboard charts. It was a clear sign that the weight of his personal battles was beginning to slow down the unstoppable force that DMX once was. Still, through every hit, every setback, and every fight, one thing never changed: DMX's fire.
That's it. What's the thing though? You're supposed to move around a little. The thing. What's this?
No, this is the laptop.
His raw honesty and emotion made him more than a rapper. He was a voice for pain, strength, and survival. As the years went on, DMX's fame started to fade, and fans who once saw him as unstoppable began to lose hope in their idol. His troubles kept piling up, and by 2008, things took another dark turn. That year, he faced more charges for drug possession and animal-related offenses after reportedly barricading himself inside his Arizona home. By the end of the year, he pleaded guilty to several charges, including drug possession and theft, and ended up serving 90 days behind bars. Then came 2009, when X struck a plea deal after being charged with attempted aggravated assault. But even after that, freedom didn't come easy. The next year, he was sent back for 4 months for violating probation before finally being released in July 2010. Not long after getting out, a major opportunity came his way. He was offered a TV pilot that was supposed to document his recovery journey. It could have been his comeback moment, but just 3 weeks into filming, he was arrested again, and the show was shut down before it even started. Later that same month, on July 27, 2010, X turned himself in to the Los Angeles Metropolitan Court for a reckless driving case that had been hanging over him since 2002. He served another 90 days for that. But it didn't end there. Shortly after, he was arrested again for breaking probation rules due to drinking. This time, the judge sent him to the mental health unit of the Arizona State Prison, where he spent 7 months getting treatment. After getting out, DMX tried once again to get back to his first love, music. In 2012, he dropped his album Undisputed, hoping to remind fans of the raw power that once made him a legend. Sadly, it didn't hit like his old records. The album sold around 17,000 copies in his first week and landed at number 19 on the Billboard chart, a huge drop from his chart-topping days. Like many who battle addiction, DMX went through cycles of recovery and relapse. In 2011, he managed to stay clean for a while and credited his children for giving him the strength to keep going. He said they were his biggest reason to fight his demons. But staying sober proved to be an uphill battle. By 2016, things spiraled again. His struggle with crack cocaine and other substances became dangerous when he was found unconscious outside a hotel in New York. Police and medics rushed to save him. He wasn't breathing when they arrived. Paramedics had to use Narcan, a life-saving medication that reverses opioid overdoses, and thankfully it worked. DMX became semi-conscious and was rushed to the hospital, where doctors managed to stabilize him. Unfortunately, his battles didn't stop there. In 2018, he found himself in serious legal trouble again, this time facing 14 counts of tax fraud. During this period, he relapsed once more, reportedly using cocaine and oxycodone. The court had ordered him to stay in a rehab program, but after leaving early, the judge decided to send him back to jail until his trial.
Right at home in the dirty trenches, first offenses, first and seconds, like when I roll with the worst offenses, since the slaughter, he go over the door and everybody got it.
Through all the chaos, DMX's life was a constant war between faith, fame, and his inner demons. His story showed the world how hard it is to outrun the pain of the past, even when you're a legend who once ruled the world of hip-hop. After pleading guilty to all charges, DMX was sentenced to 1 year in prison and 3 years of supervised release. On top of that, he was ordered to pay $2.3 million in restitution to the government and to attend another addiction treatment program. The weight of everything he'd been through started to show. He looked tired, worn out from years of struggle. But one thing never changed: his energy on stage. Even when his body began to fade, his performances were still electric, so much that even Snoop Dogg couldn't believe how much fire DMX still carried inside of him.
Shit.
That was that one.
That was the one me and my niggas go crazy for,
That was
nigga.
that one.
He took her home and stole out of her bag.
Right.
That's the G shit right there. Go
That
in
was
her
that one.
bag, purse first, ass last.
Not many people know this, but A$AP Rocky and Skepta's hit Praise the Lord was actually inspired by DMX's powerful track, Who We Be. That right there shows how deep his influence ran. His voice continued to shake new generations of artists long after his prime years. In October 2019, DMX took to social media to share some heartbreaking news. He was canceling his upcoming shows to return to rehab once again. It was another attempt to fight back against the demons that had haunted him for decades. Fans across the world sent him love and prayers, hoping this time he'd finally find peace. But tragedy struck on April 9, 2021. DMX passed away from a heart attack that was linked to drug use, which caused severe circulatory issues in his brain. According to reports, someone called for emergency help at around 10:03 p.m. on April 2nd. Paramedics arrived just minutes later and began trying to revive him. They managed to restart his heart briefly, but sadly his brain had already suffered irreversible damage. The medical examiner determined the cause of death based on hospital and police reports, and an autopsy wasn't needed. It was a devastating loss. The hip-hop world stood still. After his passing, DMX's final album, Exodus, was released, and it hit differently. The project was filled with emotion, truth, and legacy. Critics praised it, and fans around the world celebrated it as a final goodbye to a man who had lived through pain, faith, and redemption. This was the story of DMX, a man who turned his scars into music, his pain into power, and his struggle into art that will live forever. If you felt this story, show some love. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment below about your favorite DMX moment or song. His legacy deserves to keep shining.